most seem to think that Jewish law gives women a complete pass. They have something like maybe 3 mitzvot, maybe 5, when in fact, there are something like 3 or 5 that a woman is exempt from. Well, that's a really big misconception. You'll ask people, how many mitzvot can a traditional Jewish woman not engage in? What is she barred from? They'll think it's like a few hundred. So that's kind of funny. Why is traditional Judaism viewed as being patriarchal, maybe even phallocentric? I think a large part of that has to do with the fact that sadly, for many people, for too many people, their only interface with traditional Judaism is in the synagogue. And if they're judging solely on what happens in a synagogue, then many can come away, understandably, with seeing traditional Judaism as a spectator sport for the woman. What they don't understand is that Judaism is no more a synagogue-based religion than it is a church or mosque-based religion. It's a home-based religion. And the woman has always been the mainstay of the home. But increasingly, women are also the mainstay of God's global home. And invariably, what happens to my friends who consider themselves modern, postmodern, enlightened, not terribly observant, is that they get to know me and they get to know other observant women like me, and they are just so confused by what they always thought was true when it's juxtaposed upon what is the truth about our life. And while they come into the relationship perhaps thinking that the observant, and certainly the Hasidic woman, is pregnant, barefoot, chained to a pot of chicken soup, in the kitchen, behind the curtain, without a scintilla of brain matter, that just doesn't jive with what they get in real life. Okay, that's a very important question. Is Torah equally for everyone? And the answer to that is vociferously yes. Having said that, we have a curious thing where it's the mitzvah of the father to teach his son Torah. It's not the mitzvah of the mother. And yet, no less an authority than King Solomon, Shlomo HaMelech, who is credited with being the most intelligent human being, says in his book of Proverbs, Va'al titosh Torah timecha, don't forget the Torah of your mother, the Torah that your mother taught. So what is he talking about? So it turns out that there's what we call book smart, okay? There's learning material. And then there is the integration thereof. Rabbi Soloveitchik, in a moving eulogy he gave for his mother-in-law, the Tolna Rebbetzin, speaks about how at Sinai, there was the message, there were the actual 10 commandments. And at the same time, there was the thunder and the lightning and the sound of the shofar and the smoke and the flames. And he says, that's the Torah Imecha. It may indeed be the mitzvah of the father to teach his son Torah, but it's the mom who makes the Torah alive, relevant, something to live by, something to die for. That's the Torah Timecha. Who should make the ultimate decision when it comes to abortion, man or woman? Look, people always talk about how Judaism is patriarchal. Perhaps they missed the memo that to be considered Jewish, your mother has to be Jewish. In that respect, Judaism is matriarchal. But the truth of the matter is that Judaism is neither patriarchal nor matriarchal. It's covenantal. Who should make the decision about abortion, man or woman? Neither. Only God can make that decision. God's will was handed down to us through Jewish knowledge, through Jewish study. And when that question, and if that question comes up, the husband, the wife, the relevant practitioners should sit with somebody who has the Jewish knowledge to answer that question. And that's the final word, because our bodies don't belong to us. Our lives don't belong to us, and neither do the lives that grow within us. I will say that where the life of the mother is threatened, whether physiologically or psychologically, there's certainly room in Jewish law for abortion to be introduced to save the woman's life. And in that respect, I think it's important for the Jewish community and for Jewish people to be knowledgeable about that and understand that ours is not the Christian position. And should we ever get to a place where it will actually become illegal for a woman to get an abortion, even if it threatens her life, that will be a very sad day for all of us. A woman could initiate divorce proceedings. She doesn't need anybody's permission to do so. The question is, why can't she give her husband a divorce? Why must she wait for him to give her the divorce? And that answer really has to do with who gives her the marriage document. So the ketubah, the world's oldest prenuptial agreement, marriage document in the Jewish faith, is given by a man to the woman that becomes his wife. Marriage has meant many different things in many different geographic locations in different eras. But for Jews, it's always meant the soldering together of two half souls, specifically between a man and a woman, specifically both of them being Jewish, in the way God commanded, which is for a man to actively seek out his other half. And so in doing so, you're not talking about a bilateral agreement, you're talking about a unilateral agreement. A man gives his wife the ketubah, therefore he must initiate when that union comes to a halt. Should all women dress modestly? Let's expand that question. Should all people act with modesty? The answer, of course, is yes. I think people see modesty as very limiting and constricting. Modesty takes us back to the Garden of Eden. That's where we find modesty for the first time. As soon as Chava eats from the tree of consciousness, most often referred to as the tree of knowledge, and of course she shares it with her husband, only then do they become cognizant of their nakedness, as it were, and they run for the fig leaf to cover themselves. Because that act unlocked the Pandora's box where one could kind of confuse the hierarchy or the priorities when it comes to body and soul. And for the first time, it was possible for the body to obfuscate the soul. And so they sought an antidote to that, which was to cover the body so that the soul could be showcased. So in the same way that no intelligent woman who's an attorney would come into court and try to argue her case in a tank top and short shorts, because she wants to showcase her mind and her arguments and not her body. It's really the same no matter where you are. So to me, modesty is about dignity. It's about restoring our equilibrium. It's about making who we are prominent instead of what we have. It's about respecting yourself. And when you respect yourself, people respect you for that. God is neither male nor female, or both. I think both of those answers are correct. I think when God decided to create the world, with that act of creation came binary. And one of the most primal aspects of the binary is the male-female duality. And that's mirrored in every aspect of life. But God transcends all binaries. God transcends all dualities or encompasses all impossibles. God is the one for whom impossibility is an impossibility. God is both male and female and male. See, long before bi, there was Jewish mysticism saying God is both. Man eats dog is a much bigger story than dog eats man, bites man, you know? So sensationalism sells. So you're going to have these stories about disgruntled, disaffected people who lived ultra-Orthodox lives, who leave the community, and how they find utopian living and so on and so forth. And that's going to make a good show. You know, that has the drama and has the salacious factors. And all the people who are living observant lives, wholesome, happy, pedestrian lives, that doesn't make a good TV show. I think the best way for people to learn the truth about observant communities is for them to become friends with somebody who's observant and just come to their house on a Friday night or a Wednesday night and just see how they live. I have a friend who's, become closer with me over the last few years, and she keeps saying, I can't believe how normal you guys are. And I'm like, I'm so sorry that I can't truly apologize for not having horns coming out of my head and not being as crazy as you thought we were or as cloistered. The difference between a Jewish feminist and just a feminist is the difference between a Jewish drunk, a Jewish business person, a Jewish physician, and every other. Everything they do, we do better. All kidding aside, if you ask me from the perspective of Jewish theology, specifically Hasidic philosophy, and I do consider myself a Hasidic feminist, I think feminism is slowly catching up to Judaism and to Hasidism, which has always taught that God created women, God created men, because the world needs those two energies. And it should never be about one of us trying to replicate the other. Each one has enormous value. The world needs both. And that's what it means to appreciate, to celebrate, and more than anything else, to fulfill your potential as a woman. Having said that, I also want to add that a woman needs to study as much Torah as possible to live her life fully as a Jewish woman. The Rebbe explained that that means not only the information you need so you know how to, keep Shabbat or keep a kosher kitchen, but the kind of study that solidifies and strengthens her relationship with God, that makes her love Judaism, that makes her passionate. And that could be anything. That could be Talmud, that could be Mishnah, that could be Jewish mysticism. And so all of that becomes absolutely integral to a girl's study, to a woman's study. And this movement is called Chabad for a reason, because there are only three important things: study, study, and study. The word Chabad is an acrostic for Chachma, Bina, and Da'at, wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. You've got to engage the mind if you're going to live credibly as a Jew. I think it's easy to get caught up, watch the news, and say to yourself, this is such a crazy world. I think we need to get up every single day, thank God that we're here, that we have the opportunity, and do as much good as we possibly can. Just squeeze every moment of life for all that you can, because that's why we're here in the final analysis. And I think that's really the secret to living a happy life. Knowing that you have purpose, knowing that you've been vested with gifts, knowing that you have the power to make a difference. So get out there and make a difference. Stop watching the news. Stop with the social media. Go meet people in person. Go make a difference. Go knock them dead.